Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to lesson 75 of Chef's Apprentice, learning to cook like a pro, one small plate at a time. This lesson is New York strip sashimi with citrus dipping sauce and garlic chips. You are now 3/4 of the way through this course, well on your way to cooking like a pro. This simple but memorable dish showcases high quality beef in a distinctly Japanese influenced presentation. In Japan, a sushi diner may be presented with a few small slices of top quality fish on which to lavish full attention. That's the goal here, but with beef. Technically, the beef here is not sashimi because it's partially cooked. This dish is not hard to make, but involves working with very hot oil, so I rate it as challenging. You will slice the beef into bite-sized pieces, sear them briefly, then finish cooking them in front of each guest by pouring a little hot oil over the beef. Use just enough to drizzle over each piece of beef. Grapeseed oil is very light and clear, so this dish does not show as heavy and greasy as it may sound. The challenge of this dish is to sear the beef just enough so that after you finish it with the hot oil, it will be medium rare. Another challenge is to drizzle the oil over each piece of beef on each guest's plate quickly enough so that the oil does not cool and so that service of the dish does not take too long. Be very careful with the hot oil. I only serve this dish at our kitchen island where we do most of our entertaining, so that I can stand in front of each guest rather than standing behind them. You will also learn to make garlic chips, which everyone loves. The challenge is not to burn them. As you fry them, they will go from golden to brown to burned very quickly. Techniques today are trimming and slicing beef, making a dipping sauce, sautéing, frying and making garlic chips, keeping warm, seasoning and searing, plating, garnishing, and finishing. So let's start cooking. Okay, let's talk about the mise en place for lesson 75. First, we're going to need to have the star of the show, which is New York strip. And you're going to need to have about a pound of it. It's best if you can get New York strips that are at least an inch or an inch and a half, preferably more like an inch and a half thick. I couldn't get that, so I have two thinner steaks. Got a little bit more than a pound here. Now, this is prime beef, okay? That's the best for this preparation. It's going to be more marbled than choice beef. Choice beef is more common. Whole Foods sells choice. Some stores sell prime. This is prime, more highly marbled, and it's New York strip. And on the New York strip, there is I've already trimmed one of these, but you're going to need to trim them. Along the top here, there's a line of fat, okay? You're going to take your filleting knife and just cut right under that line of fat and trim that off, okay? Now, we're using, as I said, prime beef for this lesson, and that's probably the best you're going to get. But if you have access to Wagyu beef, that's going to be even better, okay? Some people call it Kobe beef. It's not really Kobe beef unless it comes from Kobe, Japan, but it's Wagyu beef that comes from Kobe, okay? It's a type of steer, right? Now, if you can find Wagyu beef, that's going to be better than the prime. But make sure you get New York strip. A lot of times when I see Wagyu beef in a store, it doesn't tell you what the cut is, right? When you buy a cut of beef, you buy a New York strip, you buy a ribeye, you buy flank steak, skirt steak. Well, often they just say Wagyu, all right? So you need to know that it's New York strip Wagyu. All right. Now, we're also going to need to have two scallions that have been cut into slices that are about 1/16 to an eighth of an inch thick. I cut them on a diagonal so they're kind of oval shaped instead of cutting them straight across, which is going to give you little round pieces. These are more oval shaped pieces cut on an angle. We'll also need to have about a tablespoon of toasted sesame seeds. I have a lot more than that here. We're just going to need about a tablespoon, maybe even less, because we're just going to be sprinkling them on at the end. Then you'll need to have about 10 to 15 large garlic cloves that have been sliced diagonally again into slices that are about 1/16 of an inch thick. We're going to be frying them and making them chips, you know, almost like potato chips, okay? So about that thickness. We'll also need to have olive oil and some brown sugar. We're only going to need a little bit of this to sprinkle on to the garlic chips when they're cooking, and probably less than a teaspoon, so we're not going to need very much. We'll need kosher salt, and we'll need peppermill. And then to make the citrus dipping sauce, the best citrus to get for this sauce is yuzu. It's a Japanese citrus fruit, Y-U-Z-U. Very hard to find in the United States. I've never seen the fresh fruit. You can sometimes find it bottled. Okay. Now, if you can't find yuzu, then use an equal mixture of lemon juice and lime juice. You're going to need 1/3 cup, and I couldn't find yuzu, so that's what I have here. I have 1/3 cup, equal amounts of lime juice and lemon juice, freshly squeezed. All right, then you'll need to have some good soy sauce. You can use cheap soy sauce, but this is going to be a better sauce if you can get some better soy sauce. And then finally, we're going to need some grapeseed oil, about 2 cups. And grapeseed is a high smoke point oil, meaning that it smokes at a higher smoke point and it will catch fire at a higher smoke point. It'll burn at a higher smoke point. So we want a high smoke point oil. Also, this is very light and clear oil, and we're going to need about 2 cups. I have more than that here, but we won't need that much. All right, that's all of the ingredients that we'll need. We'll break now, come back, and I'll show you the equipment for lesson 75. Now, for equipment for lesson 75, we're going to need a cutting board and a chef's knife. We're going to need a filleting knife or boning knife to remove that fat line from the top of the New York strip. We also need to have a slicer because we're going to slice that New York strip a little bit later. We need to have a juicer to squeeze the lemon and limes. And we'll need to have a small mixing bowl to mix the dipping sauce and a spoon. And we'll need to have one little dipping bowl per person. I'm doing for 3 tonight, but I'm showing you the ingredients to do the whole presentation as it's set forth in the description. Also need to have a saute pan to cook the garlic chips. I'm going to use a small wok. You could use any saute pan. You also need to have a slotted spoon. Need to have some brown paper to crumble and drain those garlic chips on. Need to have a sizzle plate or some other plate to put the beef slices on after we slice the beef. Then we'll need to have a saucepan that's going to hold the hot oil. And it should be a nice looking one because it's going to be right in front of the guests. You also need to have a deep fry thermometer so you can keep track of the oil temperature, and also a ladle. Then you'll need to have a cast iron skillet. That's going to be for searing the beef. And then we will need to have a cold plate. I'm going to use a sizzle plate to receive the beef. We want it to be cold because we do not want to have a hot plate that will further cook the beef after we've seared it. You'll see why later on. Then we'll need to have chopsticks for each person and a small gratin dish. This is what the beef will actually be served in to each one of the guests, and this is what you will be drizzling the hot oil into. So it has to be something that is deep enough that oil is not going to basically run out the sides. Then you'll need to have a butane burner. We used this in the sukiyaki lesson. We'll be using this in front of the guests. You'll need to have the butane as well as the butane burner. And then finally, you'll need to preheat your oven to 200 degrees. Okay, that is all of our equipment. We'll break, come back, and start cooking. Okay, the first thing on our prep list is to make the citrus dipping sauce. So we're going to pour the lemon and lime juice mixture and the soy sauce, the shoyu, which is 1/3 cup, into a small mixing bowl and stir it up well. And now we're going to plate it up. We're going to put it right into the dipping bowls. I'm doing enough for 3 tonight. Actually, I'm only going to do 1 on camera. So we'll just put, a couple of tablespoons into the dipping bowl for each person. Okay, now we're going to slice the beef, and we're going to do it on an angle. We've done this before, and why did we do it on an angle? Because you get larger pieces that way. Okay, now what we want to do is make them about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch thick. All right, so we're going to slice on an angle to get pieces that are about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch thick. Okay, we're going to do that with both of these steaks. All right, now we're going to make our garlic chips, but before we do that, we want to do two things. One is bring our beef to room temperature. Second thing we're going to do is take our gratin dishes or whatever you're using that's similar to that and put that into the 200-degree oven that you've already preheated. Right, then what we want to do is I've put about, I might say about 1/4 cup of olive oil into this. I'm using this small wok. You can use any kind of a saute pan. And now we're going to add the garlic that we sliced earlier. And we're also going to add some salt. Oh, and I'm going to turn the heat on to between medium and low. We're going to add some salt, add some pepper, and we're going to add just a little sprinkle of brown sugar. Just a little bit, okay? Now we're going to keep a close eye on these garlic chips, and when they are golden, we're going to take them out with a slotted spoon and drain them onto the crumpled brown paper that we have waiting nearby. Okay, now you can see that our garlic chips are nice and golden, okay? So we're going to use our slotted spoon and take them out and put them onto the crumpled brown paper. Got to take them out fairly quickly because they will continue to get brown and they'll eventually burn, okay? So let's get them out of there as fast as we can. Now you're going to just keep these warm until just before we plate. There we go. And spread them around on the brown paper so they drain nicely, drain separately from each other. All right, now I've portioned out the beef because I'm serving for 3 people. I'm going to serve 3 slices per person, which will fit nicely into the gratin dishes. We want to now lightly season on one side. So we're going to put a little salt and a little pepper on one side. Now, why are we doing that? Why are we doing just one side? We're going to be searing the side with the seasoning. And then we're going to be plating it and serving it to the guest with the seared side down. So it looks like they're getting raw beef. But actually, in fact, it's been partially cooked on the bottom side, okay? So we're putting the seasoning on one side, the same side that we're going to be searing, so that when they get the beef, when the beef is served to them, it looks like it's raw, unseasoned beef. Now the next thing we're going to do is heat our grapeseed oil. Now, I'm going to put that onto this burner that's not directly under the camera. And we're going to put that on medium, a little bit lower than medium heat. We want to bring this up to 350 degrees. I'm going to be using my instant read thermometer. You can use a candy thermometer or a deep frying thermometer. And you want to have at least 2 cups of oil in this pan. Why? The less oil you have, the harder it is to regulate the temperature. You want to get it to 350 and you want to keep it at 350. We're going to heat it up here on the stove, and then we're going to transfer this to the butane burner, which is over where the guests are going to be served. And so I'm using a saucepan that's not too wide, that's more narrow and deep, so that that oil kind of stays, you know, in a smaller volume, and it's easier to control the temperature that way. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sear the beef. Now, in my cast iron pan here, I've already taken about a tablespoon of the oil that we used to cook the garlic. That's here on the back burner. Took about a tablespoon of that. We're going to be working in batches. We use about a tablespoon, maybe a little less than a tablespoon for each batch. We're not using an official tablespoon measure. We're just using the type of tablespoon that you have in the kitchen. Okay, so what we're going to do now is put this cast iron skillet onto low heat, okay? And we're going to let that get up to the point where we're just starting to see whiffs of smoke. But remember, cast iron gets hot and it maintains its heat, so you don't want to get the oil to be, or the pan to be too hot, or it will cook the beef too fast. We're going to be putting the beef into this pan, seasoned side down, and we're going to be searing it for only 20 to 30 seconds, okay? We want it to be seared on the bottom, but we want it to look raw on the top. All right, now while the oil is heating, what you can do is take the dipping sauces that we plated and put them at wherever you're serving. Put everything out like you're going to be serving it. Put, placemat, napkin, put the chopsticks down, put down a plate to receive the gratin dish, and also you're going to put down a little dish with the garlic chips. So here's our little plate with the garlic chips. I may not have mentioned having a little plate for the garlic chips during the introduction, but it's in the description. Okay, let's sear our beef. Now we're going to put them down in the same groupings that we're going to serve them, okay? And since we're only going to be searing these for 20 to 30 seconds, by the time that we get them all into the pan, it's going to be about time to take out the first ones that we put down. We'll just give them maybe a couple more seconds. This one here, this is a little thinner, so I'm taking this one out sooner. Keeping them together in the same groupings. Okay, now let's put that into the refrigerator. We want to stop the cooking. Okay, our oil temperature is 347, no, 348. Okay, so it's up to temperature. I'm going to reduce the heat, and I'm going to keep a close eye on this temperature. Keep it right around 350 until we're ready to transfer this to the butane burner. All right, here's the beef. We halted the cooking by putting it into the refrigerator. Now we're going to put it onto the gratin dishes. Now remember, they've been in the oven at 200 degrees. And what I want to do is get them out, get the beef onto them, and then put it in front of the guest as quickly as possible. Why? We want to have some warmth. The 200 degrees is also helping to cook this dish, okay? But the longer we take to get it plated and in front of the guests, the cooler it's going to get. Okay, that's the conclusion of Lesson 75, New York Strip Sashimi with citrus dipping sauce and garlic chips. You can see photos of the final dish at my Instagram, which is at Chef's Apprentice Cook Like a Pro. Next up is the ravioli master recipe. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.